Hello everyone, my name's Andy from Constant Contact in Brisbane, and today we'll be taking you through the Vision 6 Power Session, Use NPS to Focus and Gauge Loyalty. So in today's session, we'll take a look at the NPS. What actually is it? The benefits of sending one of these surveys at the end of the year, and then also how to create one inside Vision 6. So firstly, what is NPS? Well, it stands for Net Promoter Score, and it's a calculation that's been used for many years, and it's used to gauge the percentage of customers or contacts likely to recommend a company, product, or service to a friend or colleague. And it's a scale, so the scale goes from -100, which is the worst possible score you could get, hopefully none of those, to +100, which is the best possible score you could get, and it could sit anywhere in between. Now, as you can see there, I'm mentioning detractors and promoters. I'll go through that in a little bit in a moment. But essentially, if you get anything under or in the negatives, essentially, that means that you've got more people that are saying negative things about your business, product, service, company, etc., than positive, and you're likely to lose customers. And if you're getting a positive score, that means you've got more people saying positive things about your business, product, service, etc., and you're likely to gain customers. So it's worthwhile doing this over time. Most companies seem to do it, either 6 or 12 months, or perhaps they will do it based on transactional type events. So for example, after they've had a call with your call center, they might send out the survey, so more transaction based. Or it could be perhaps, 3 months after they've signed up for a product or service. That's when they get hit with an NPS. So it really depends on, if it's point in time where everyone gets the survey or more transactional based. I guess it doesn't really matter. It's still a survey. You're getting great data out of it. So just have a think about how that might work for your business and when would be the best time to send. But for us, we sort of generally are suggesting, or in this power session, we're generally suggesting the end of the year might be a good time to do so. And we'll touch on why in a few moments. So the NPS is based on a likeliness scale from 0 to 10. So you're asking the contact, how likely are you to recommend our product, service, business, or company to a friend or colleague? 0 being not likely at all, 10 being very likely. And that's obviously that scale of all the numbers in between. Now, it divides those respondents into 3 categories. If the contact gives a 9 or a 10, they are called a promoter. In other words, they will generally go out of their way to promote or talk about it in a positive light, the business or your product, services, etc. If the contact gives a 7 or an 8, they're called a passive. They're on the fence, they're not just, it's okay, they're not sort of saying anything good, saying anything bad. They're just an everyday maybe user of the product and don't sort of mind either way. They're not, they don't have any issues with the product or service, and also the same way they're not feeling particularly attached to it as well. Now, if any respondents provide a score between 0 and 6, they're called a detractor. So they'll generally be the ones who might leave a negative Google review, or who will, if a friend sort of says, "Oh, have you heard about this donut shop before?" They'll go, "Nah, they're not that good." They'll actually go out of their way to say something negative, or to tell people who might be asking about said product or service. They might say something in a negative light because there's something about it that they don't like. Now, the NPS is actually calculated by subtracting the percentage of detractors from the percentage of promoters. And there's a great little tool there that I've linked here, which I'll open up for you. So as you can see there, let's say that now when you're filling this in, essentially, you enter the number of people that gave that score. So 29 people gave me a score of 1 when I did my survey. 23 gave me a 5. 12 people gave me a 6, and so on. Now, you'll see here that we've got the percentages have been worked out for us using this handy calculator, and you'll see there that the detractors total almost 30%, the neutrals 27.44%, and the promoters, thankfully we have more of those than detractors, so 42.79%, results in an NPS score of positive 13. So remember, it goes from -100 to positive 100. So as long as it's in the green, positive, it is a good thing, but obviously the higher you can get it towards the 100, plus 100, would be a good thing. So if I just sort of purposely mess this up a bit and say that 150 people gave us a score of 3, we now have a negative NPS overall. So more people out there are saying negative things or won't recommend us to a friend or colleague than those that would. So this generally is showing us that we'll probably be losing customers. We'll have a lot of churn. We need to work to improve that. And thankfully, the other 2 questions in the NPS survey are what we can use to determine what needs to be improved. So as I said, how is it calculated? Just as we saw in that example there, it's the percentage of promoters and then minus the percentage of detractors. And here are the scores. And that calculator does the hard work for you, as you can see there. What is a good NPS? Well, you can see there anything in the positive is good, but obviously there's great and excellent as well. So over 70 is deemed excellent, 30 is great, or 30 plus is great. 0 to 29 is good, or 0 to 30 there. And obviously anything under 0, so in the negatives, means there needs some improvement to be made. And a bit of a guide by industry, you can go to this website down here, retentley.com, and see all these graphs and charts and things as well, and sort of see where you fit in terms of your industry. So you can see here, these are some examples from 2023, at least, sort of communications and media, internet services are sort of here under the 30 mark. So they're showing it as yellow, and other industries, insurance seems to rate quite well there. Again, it changes by industry. It changes also by country, sometimes the type of product. So yes, there's a lot of things grouped under retail, but then you've also got different types of retail. So yeah, it just really depends. But there are some fantastic resources to look at online to see where you would sit or should sit from an industry point of view. And you can use that as a guide to say, well, we're under where we should be based on what our competition is probably scoring. So maybe room for some improvement there as well. But use it as a guide to sort of see where you fit. And of course, you can do this NPS over time. You can sort of do one every 6 months, 12 months, see what the trend is, hopefully trending up, more positive, and see how you go. So why in this session are we sort of suggesting doing this at the end of the year? Well, it gives you a great way to focus and sort of helps you to devise some goals for your team as to where you should put your effort in the following year. So, you might do a bit of a survey towards the end of the year, and it is for many service-based business, end of year is a quieter time, and it means you can, get this sort of data out there, ask people how they are, what the sort of general vibe is, what the feeling is about your products and services, get the data back, and then workshop that with your staff to review the ideas, come up with some feedback, think of some improvements you might like to make. How much are they going to cost? How much resource will we need to make this improvement? Maybe some of the comments you were getting was that the quality of the food, if you're a bakery or something, a donut shop like we pretend to be here, the quality of the food's gone down. Or maybe we can work with our suppliers to see what's going on. Or maybe we're ordering too much and it's going out of date quicker and we're not sort of on top of that. Maybe there's some staff training because the service wasn't as good as it used to be. So by looking at this data, we can sort of see what we actually need to improve. Workshop it with your staff, come up with the different improvements that you might like to make, and then use that to devise goals and KPIs with the team. So again, coming into the new year, great time to do this. It sort of seems to work well with the goal setting KPI kind of thing that would start in the new year. But again, you can do it any time of year really, but end of year seems to be a good time for those reasons. And of course, if you get lots of positive results, great time to celebrate the wins. So let's jump into Vision 6 now and get building. So there's a couple of things we need. First, we need these 3 form fields to build our survey form or questionnaire. So there's the scale 0 to 10 and the 2 questions. What do we do well? What could we do better? They're the 3 core questions on an NPS survey. We do recommend sticking to those. Otherwise, it's not really an NPS survey. It's something bigger. So stick to those. And the next step we'll do is we need to build an email and have a nice big button, something nice and obvious to take the user to the form when they click the button. That's what we'll do here now in Vision 6. So I've just got Vision 6 open here, and I'm in the lists and forms area. And this is where we have all of our different forms, our lists with different contacts on them. So we'll start, this is the list I'm going to use today. So I'll double click. As you might remember, double clicking on a list gets you into forms view for that list. So let's double click. And now we are here in the forms view. So what we can now do is start to customize the form. Now, one important thing to keep in mind is that for surveys and questionnaires where you're asking your existing contacts for more information, like how do we rate, what are we doing well, etc., we need to use an update profile form type. So we've got different types of forms in Vision 6, but an update profile form is the one to use if you're asking your existing contacts to provide some data. And it kind of makes sense because anyone who fills in this form is updating their profile in Vision 6 with some more information that you didn't know before. by filling in the survey, they are updating their profile and providing that more information. So that's sort of, I guess, a good little trick you could use to think about what form type should we use. And again, in this case, update profile. Little tip, you can actually double click on it in the tab name here and rename it. So I'm just going to call it NPS survey as the name of the form and press save. Now, there is this login form here. You'll see that now that we've got this tick, there's these three little other tabs down the bottom here, but this login form comes up. We don't need, actually, well, in this case, we don't need this. So I'm actually going to skip it. I'll explain why in a few moments. So we'll go here. This is the one that we actually need to adjust. So I'll just quickly come in here and do a few things like change the color of the block. I might just also adjust the form color just to stick with our branding. So you can make all those sort of changes in here. Now I might change the text from update profile. So how are we doing can be the title of our form. And I'll put our logo in here as well. That's just, again, just to reinforce that it is us asking these questions. So when we're in the little editor here, I'll press the the little image button there in the toolbar, pick our logo, and then I might make it a bit smaller and just insert that in. There we go. Excellent. Now, you'll see on this form is a whole bunch of questions. We don't actually need any of these because we already know all these details. Remember, this is an update profile form. It's not a subscribe form. So we already know their name and email because they would have filled it in when they first joined our list. So what we actually can do here is just remove all those fields, which I did with the little icon there. They're still here on the list. It's just that they're not on the form. You can also, of course, on the right here, tick these things on and off with a little eyeball icon. But anyway, we don't need any fields on our form of the ones that were there because we're going to make some new fields with our 3 questions. So first of all, how do we make the 3 new fields for the 3 questions we need to ask? Well, over on the right here under fields, you'll see all the fields I already have on my list, but I don't have any for this survey. So I'm going to press add new and add in the new fields. Now, the first one is that rating from 0 to 10. So let's make a new field to capture that. Now, I could really, in theory, use a drop-down or a radio button for this. I don't want to use a checkbox because that will allow them to choose multiple numbers, which wouldn't really be a very good score. So I'm going to use, I could use a drop-down or a radio, which is where they can only choose one thing. A radio probably is better because they can see all the values on the screen. So I'm going to use a radio button field. Next question is what would you like to call the field in Vision 6? So NPS score sounds good. And now what I'll do is actually go through and add in all the numbers that they can choose from right up to 10. So 0 to 10 is the NPS scale. There we go. Now, if we're a bit quick and accidentally missed one, of course, when you put it in, it'll put it in last and your numbers will be out of whack. But don't worry, you can grab this little thing here and rearrange the options. So if you do make a mistake, and you can obviously delete that option there, or you could go and make a new one and then rearrange it if the order was wrong that you had there. Press save. That's then put them all on the screen there for us. But one thing you might notice is that it's taking up a lot of room. What about all this over here? So what you can do is with this selected in the options over here under the design, you can actually adjust a few things. So I'd like to put the label above, and I'd like to, instead of having these as one item per row or whatever, I'd like to have it all as one row. So now they all fit on the one row there. Excellent, much neater, and looks a bit cleaner. Now we'll go and add our second question or field, which is what do we do well? Now you might instantly sort of be drawn to the text field, and you could use a text field for this. However, just a little thing, keep in mind that text fields have a limit of characters of about 250-ish, I believe, potentially 255. So if the person has a lot to say, it'll be cut off. So maybe we don't use all of the, it won't allow them to add potentially their essay or whatever they'd like to say about us. So we're going to go and use a comment field. This can store tens of thousands of characters, so a lot of information. Hopefully no one does give you that many characters, but you never know. And we could call this, let's call it things we do well. And remember, the field name is what you see in Vision 6. And if we just pressed save, it is also what the contact would see when they look at the form. But there is a field display name here. And this is where you can make it say something else on the screen as opposed to what's being saved in Vision 6. So the field in Vision 6 is called Things We Do Well, but the display name that everyone sees is, it can be, it can be a bit nicer, essentially. So in here, I've done what do we do well, question mark. So it reads a little bit nicer than things we do well, which is sort of an internal name. You might even like to call this good things, and then the other question might be bad things, just to keep it really simple as an internal field name. But obviously externally, we want to make that read nicer. Press save. So far, so good. I'll add one more field, again, a comment field, because we need that extra space. And this could be for improvement would be the field name, and the contacts would see what could we do better or what could we improve on, that kind of thing. So there we go. What do we do well? What could we do better? And by the way, you can, of course, adjust these after the fact over here. So if you put more information in, it is adjusting the contact version of the field name. In other words, what the people will see, the display name, you can adjust at any time later here. It's only the Vision 6 field that is called Things We Do Well or For Improvement. Internally, that's what they're called. Externally, they'll see this nice text here. If you want to also, under NPS score, you'll notice there is a description, which is optional. You could say 0 equals not at all or not likely, and 10 equals very likely. And you might like to change it from NPS score to how likely are you to recommend us to a friend or colleague. And we don't need this extra text box, so we can delete that. So there we go. How likely are you to recommend us? And it's got 0 to 10, which is the score. And then underneath that, I've put a little guide as to what the numbers mean in case they don't. Got a typo there. In case they don't make sense to the user, they can use that to sort of see. And then, obviously, you got the other two questions underneath. Again, you can also change the submit button. Maybe let's center the submit button, and we'll go save or something, or whatever you'd like to put in there as your button, and then press save up here to save the form. But that's basically it done now. One other quick thing just to remember is you might remember that there was this login form here. What is this about? Well, when this form is being sent out in an email, Vision 6 doesn't need the person who's filling it in to log in, because it knows who they are. The good thing about linking things from an email in Vision 6 is that each link is unique, and Vision 6 knows that if Bob is getting this email, then the person filling in the form after they click through on the button is going to be Bob. So we don't need this here. So we can actually skip this. So here under Advanced Settings, click this button, which basically what it does is don't show this login form if the contact is clicking through from an email, which they will be. In a few moments, I'm going to build the email and show you how to link it through. So they will be coming through from an email. We don't want to confuse them unnecessarily by asking them to log in. They may not know what this is about. We can skip it because we will know who they are. We will know who to attribute the answers to when they fill it in. So we don't need this login, and we can tick that on to skip it. So all we're going to use is this. By the way, when the user does press save, they will be taken to this thank you page. So you might like to customize this as well. Something nice to say, thanks for your information. It really helps us improve our business or our offering or whatever. So you can do the thank you page, worthwhile doing, because they will see that when they fill it in. Lastly, if you want, you can make some fields mandatory. So, you could make all 3 of them mandatory, or maybe just the first one mandatory if you want to as well on there. So there you go. That's building the survey. Next thing is we need to link to it rather from an email. So I've gone into messages here and built a new email, or maybe you've got one already made and you've just sort of got it up on the screen here. And let's now go and finish off this email, because most of it's there. It's got, hey, first name, and I used the little wildcard here to insert the first name. There we go. It just gives me this code. I'm actually going to copy this. I'm going to use it in a moment. So, hey, first name, thanks for being a loyal customer. You've been visiting our stores for a while. We'd love to get some feedback. And we've got a button there. Let's say the button will make it How are we doing? And I'm going to paste that thing that I copied before, which is the code to insert the first name. How are we doing? First name, question mark. And what this is going to do is get the contact's first name and put it on the button, which is really good for engagement. Definitely worthwhile doing that because more people will click it than if it was a generic one. Just one of those things that just seems to work. So if you've got a first name field and you're capturing that, definitely use that to your advantage in the introduction on the button. You can also put it in the subject line as well. So now that we've got that, you might be thinking that button is a little bit squashy there, Andy. It's a bit tight. How about you make the button a bit wider? Well, actually, if you think about it, in most cases, people are going to have a first name that is much shorter than all of that text. You know, Christopher's a fairly a fairly long first name, and even that's not going to take up all that space. Christopher is shorter than all that stuff there. So it looks tight at the moment, but if you do a preview and you flick through your contacts, you'll see that there's plenty of room for my contacts at least to fit their first names. The preview does obviously show you the real data as to what will happen when you send it. So yeah, I can see on the preview that the button's fine for everyone. In fact, it could probably even be a little bit slimmer. If I want to, I could make it maybe 220 and it would still be fine, but up to you. Cool. All right. And the last thing we need to do is link it. At the moment, we've got a nice looking button. It doesn't go anywhere. So we need to press the link icon here or here and go into the link area and link it to a Vision 6 form, the one that we built over there. So we'll go to Web Forms. And the first question is, what are we linking to? It is an update profile form. Next question is, what list is it on? It's on our Powersession here, the Powersession NPS list, and it is called NPS survey. Now, this is why it's a good idea to double click on your tabs and rename the form to whatever it's called, NPS survey, because when you go and link it here, that name will come up in the dropdown. So it's much easier than going into here and going, oh, which one is it again? You know, if you've got 50 forms like I do in there, then it can get quite messy to sort of know which one you're linking to if you've got lots of update profiles. So in my case, having it named as I did there has definitely helped. So remember, choose your list, choose your form. Now, if you're not seeing it, it might be because you haven't done it as an update profile form or you haven't selected update profile form up here. So one of those two reasons will be why you're not seeing it down here. So we press insert, save. This email is now good to send. Anyone who clicks it, Vision 6 will know who they are if they're on your list, which they should be because they're getting an email from you sent to the list. It will take them here. It will not show them the login form because we know who they are and we have this turned on. They can then fill in the survey, press save. They'll get the thank you page. And then the next question generally that I get is, okay, where do the answers go? If someone fills it in, how do I find out what they said? Two things you can do. Firstly, if you go to details, notifications, pop your email address into this mailbox if you want to receive an email every time someone fills it in. So that could be handy. But of course, the data is stored against their contact record. Now, at the moment, if I come across, you'll see I've got my fields here for, where are they? Here we go. NPS score, things we do well, things we could do better, and all their answers will be stored next to their name underneath here. Now, no one has filled in this survey yet. I haven't even sent it yet. So that's why there's a lot of blanks. But here's one I prepared earlier again. I do have a list which has some data in it. So here we go. NPS score, what do we do well? What could be for improvement? There are my fields there. And you'll see that 3 people have given us a score. We've got here Nigel has, Tina Turnover has as well, and Tom Jones here has also given us a score. But Tina was the only one who also said what we do well and what could be better. She's the only one who filled in those answers. And obviously you'll see here that Nigel and Tom did not because there are blanks in those fields. And that's probably because I didn't make those fields mandatory. So they could, we were allowing them to leave the fields blank. So if you do want everyone to answer all 3 questions, make them mandatory when you build your form. But yeah, that's how you can see the information. And if you want to export just the people that have answered the survey and what they wrote, you can go to the search here, do a new search, and let's go for NPS score is empty, no. So this is searching Vision 6 to say, hey Vision 6, show me everyone whose NPS score is not empty. It's sort of like a reverse, is empty no. It's basically saying, show me everyone who has something in the NPS score field. And there's my 3 people that have answered my survey. I can now download the data and graph it in Excel or do whatever I want. Remember, once you've got all the data, you need to then put it into a calculator like this. So in this case, we had an 8, a 9, and a 4. So we had one person give us an 8, one person give us a 9, one person give us a 4. That's how it works. Our NPS score is 0 because it's very even. But if we had 20 people give us a 9 and maybe another 5 give us a 5 and 3 give us a 6, so we're now building up a better profile. 37 is our NPS score. Remember, it's on a range from -100 to +100. Anything over 0 is good. Obviously, the higher you get to +100, the better. But yeah, 37, that's actually a pretty good NPS score. So if that was my counts of data, that's my score. Just a quick recap now. The best form type to use is update profile because it's for existing contacts updating their profile. Generally, keep it to the standard 3 questions. Don't go and start asking all these other questions. What's your favorite store? What's your favorite food? It's just the 3 questions where possible. The score from 0 to 10, and then 2 comment fields. What did we do well, or what did we do well, and what could we do better? Remember also to skip the login form, which is that tick box when you're building your form. And just one other little quick tip. If you are sending out this survey more than once, you might like to make new fields every time. Because if you use the same form with the same 3 fields, if any of your existing contacts have filled it in before, when they see the update profile form, they will see their previous answers in there when it opens on their screen. And if they change them, you've then lost the history as to what they had previously. So it might be a smart idea that when you go through and build another survey in a few months' time, or next year, when you go and make your fields over here, you make new ones every time. And that way, you're not overriding the old information when someone fills it in again, as in a subsequent time they're filling it in. And also, when they go and load the form, it won't show them their previous answers and override them with what they've just written in this time. So you won't get any trends that way. So we do recommend making new fields every time you run the survey. That way you've got the history. And you could call it, NPS, when you're doing your radio button, you could call it NPS score 2024 and then 2025. So you know what it is each year and you're not overriding old data and losing that history. Because if you're doing it this way, you'll be able to look at trends when you download the data. You can see, is the score from people improving? Or you could use the segmenting in Vision 6 to go, is the score improving over time for people in Queensland? Oh, great, cool. Maybe it's not improving for people in New South Wales. Why is that? Is it because we closed a whole bunch of stores, or is it because we have a new supplier in New South Wales and people aren't finding the food as good? That kind of thing. You can do all this if you've got trending data and are retaining data over time. But if you're just using the same fields, you'll lose the information every single time. Now, just a quick look at some other training and resources we've got. We do run these power sessions every couple of weeks, and you can find on that first link there on our webpage a list of all the upcoming power sessions. You can register for those. I recommend registering even if you can't make the session times, because the great thing is that we'll send you the recording if you can't make the session. We'll send you the recording either way. So definitely worthwhile joining up to other sessions. If speaking of recordings, you can see our history of recordings, all of them, about 50 or so now, on our YouTube channel there at youtube.com/vision6, and then there's a link there to a Power Sessions playlist. We also have a really great free email marketing certification course, a couple of hours of videos and some exams. Definitely worthwhile having a look at. It's free. You get a badge and a certificate for your LinkedIn as well. And of course, you can find all of our support articles and how-to guides at our support center, linked at the bottom there. And in fact, we do have an exact article that walks you through how to make an NPS survey shown there. It walks you through all the steps. And you can always get to our support center from in product. Press the question mark, go to Help Center, and that will take you to the homepage. And if you search for NPS, you'll find this guide that I was showing you here. Wonderful. Well, thanks again so much for joining our Power Session today. Really hope you're enjoying these. My name's Andy. Thanks again. Enjoy the rest of your day.